Hey, what's going on, my everyone viewers? My name's Evercade. Welcome to the channel, and today I want to talk about something which might be a little controversial. I want to discuss the idea of of Evercade and Blizzard Entertainment focusing on native games for Evercade. Now, what does this mean? Now, obviously, as we all know, the Evercade started life as a handheld, which was an emulation console, which emulated games from the Sega Mega Drive, NES, Game Boy Advance, all those sort of systems, and it was a wild success. Did really well. So Blaze then rolled out a console, which I have in front of me, the Evercade VS, and they've got an updated handheld coming out later this year in the EXP, and the system's been widely successful. You know, we've had there's loads of videos on YouTube talking about the Evercade in a good positive light. Other videos discussing, games they want on Evercade, and you know, theories about Evercade and reviews and all this sort of stuff. And I've participated in that. I've helped with that as well. A lot of Evercade channels have. I know Peking Universe, Evercade Effect, Evercanadian. Loads of channels have made videos about Evercade, including videos on secret games and all that sort of stuff. But today I want to propose something to a lot of people. Right? I want this is only an idea. Don't get mad at me. Don't unsubscribe. Don't get mad at me in the comments for this saying this. But I feel as if Blaze should focus on native ports for 1 year. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, obviously we know next year we're getting Amiga games. We're getting the Turboplane Arcade 2 is supposed to be coming next year, from what a lot of people have been saying, because we do know there's supposed to be a second one. And Indie Heroes 2 comes out in January. So that's a lot of obviously stuff we know about 2023. So I'm thinking in 2024, Blaze should just take. Yeah, obviously there'll still be cards start with emulated titles, obviously, but Blaze should maybe spin it a bit and focus a little bit more on bringing native games to Evercade. Now, what do I mean? Well, first of all, for those who don't know, with the Evercade being an emulation machine originally, a lot of people kind of looked at it and kind of went, "Oh, it's emulation," because emulation is seen as a dirty word with a lot of people, because obviously people think, "Oh, is it legal? Is it piracy?" And obviously it depends really, because emulation of a game from a company that doesn't exist anymore, in my opinion, is not really piracy, because technically that company doesn't exist anymore. But emulation of, say, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog, it's piracy, because obviously you can legally purchase that game from the original company who owns it. Now, what I mean by Evercade focusing on native ports is, because obviously with Cathedral being the first native Evercade game, well, first native Evercade game on a cart, because technically there's technically a native game on the VS, which you can, it's a secret game. To me personally, I feel like, Blaze should maybe take 2024 and maybe have some more developers bring their games natively to Evercade. Why doing this would be a good idea is because it would then, in a lot of people's eyes, it would legitimize Evercade as an actual console. Because a lot of people probably look at Evercade as like, oh, it's emulation. I can play those ROMs anywhere, and that might be true. But if Blaze, say, I don't know, went to, say, Bitmap Bureau and got 88 Heroes and Final Vendetta and natively running it on the Evercade, on a cartridge, that would change a lot of people's look at them. Say they got a Shovel Knight. I know Shovel Knight's not really likely, but it's, for example, they was able to get Shovel Knight to run natively on Evercade. That's another example. Say they go to Watermelon Games and get them to make Pat Priam and Pearson. I know this is wishful thinking here, guys, because obviously we all know how long it took them to release the game on the Mega Drive. But say, and then we got them to port, Pat Priam and Pier Solar natively to Evercade. That'd be another big thing. You know, there's tons of different developers out there. There's hundreds of thousands of indie devs really, who have games and who have, systems. Who obviously they've got games on Steam, Epic Game Store, Xbox, Switch, PS4, whatever. But what it is, right, with a lot of these indie devs, is they're kind of forgotten. Their games are kind of like lost in the shuffle. Because, not being funny, but when you look at Steam has tens of thousands of games on there. You look at the Switch eShop or the Xbox Store or the PlayStation Store, they all have like 10,000 plus games to purchase, which for a lot of indie devs isn't really good, because then their game, if they're not the one hit wonder, if they've not got the next Shovel Knight or the next Cuphead, they're gonna fall through the cracks. And Blaze can sort of like utilize that as a marketing tool. in my opinion. This would be a smart business decision, but Blaze basically goes to some of the small indie devs, helps them port their games to Evercade, right? I don't know, maybe they just do mostly dual carts a year or something, and then there you go. Bob's your uncle. In 2024, they could do a year where they obviously do the native games, and it makes a lot of people look at Evercade in a different light. You know, if say I don't know, we have Atari, have Combinera, and some I don't know Atari Mania running natively on Evercade, that might make them look more legitimate as a system than your random generic Android handheld or your generic, you know, emulation machine you got from Alibaba for $25. You know, it's just how it is. Because with Evercade originally starting as emulation, a lot of people will still look at it as, oh, it's just an emulator. When we know with Cathedral and the Cathedral running natively on Evercade, that's not the case anymore. It's just, you know, mainly emulation, but it can run native games, right? We just need more developers to develop games natively for Evercade to show the true potential of Evercade and what it can really do to push the limits of the hardware. Now, the Evercade is not the most powerful console. I'll say that for a fact, but it is powerful enough to run quite a few indie games. Now, I will say the one drawback of Evercade focusing on native games would be the original handheld, because the original handheld isn't as powerful as the VS or the EXP, so that could lead to Blaze just dropping support for that system entirely, which I don't think is good. You know, I don't think it'd be good for the consumer, because obviously if people already own the Evercade handheld and they didn't get the EXP or they don't have a VS, they then can't play a lot of games. Problem is, if Blaze doesn't drop the support of it, then the games may not run properly on those systems, or you know, they may be harder to play, or they may not just work on them in general. And with Evercade, they always preached about having the carts work on all their systems. Obviously, the Namco carts obviously are the exception due to licensing issues, which I hope Blaze eventually sorts out. But to me personally, I think it's great. I think it's a great idea that Blaze would just maybe take 2024, focus on some native games, get some more indie devs and whatnot on board, and then sort of basically not really relaunch, but like basically push them out there and be like, hey, look, we're a legitimate console. Come buy our console, you know? Because I think the Evercade is a great system, you know, and its focus on retro is great, obviously, but the emulation part is the problem for a lot of people because obviously it's emulation. A lot of people want it. A lot of people want to play legit games, as they put it, games that are actually running on the hardware. So if they do it, so if say Blaze did do that and took 2024 and basically went to companies like Atari, Big Yacht Club, Bitmap Bureau, and a few others, and be like, hey, can you and help them port their games to Evercade natively? It could potentially change the game for Evercade as well, because then more people see these indie games. Like, oh, I know this game, I know that game, and they buy it on a physical cartridge because a lot of these games aren't on physical media anymore. And it would just be fun. This is just an opinion, guys. This is just thoughts. Don't take anything I said as confirmation. Nothing I've said in this video is confirmed. Besides, obviously, the Turplane stuff. Besides what I said earlier about the releases we know about for 2023. So, besides anything else I've said about like the emulation, we all know that's true. But besides that, and stuff about 2024 being a year of native games, that's all speculation. That's just an idea. It's all an opinion. Don't take anything as fact. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. Do you want to see Evercade focus on native games for a year to try and help, get more people on board? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments down below. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. I'm trying to hit 300 subs by the end of January, and let's see if we can do it. Like the video, obviously. Comment. If you like the video, share it around. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.